You came here today with a question unspoken, yet heavy beneath the surface of your mind. Why do you find yourself alone? More often than not, even when you never chose isolation. You look around and wonder why connections that once shimmered with warmth now feel brittle and hollow. There is no conflict, no anger, no deliberate exile. And yet, the space between you and others grows wider. It is not that you push people away. No, you simply outgrow them. And that is not rejection, it is evolution. Let us begin by confronting a subtle illusion of the world that closeness is measured by proximity, by frequency, by noise. The modern soul has been taught to equate social success with constant interaction. But I tell you, this depth does not dwell in the crowd. It dwells in the silence, and those who journey inward, those I call the logical introverts, are not broken or antisocial. They are pilgrims of truth, alchemists of solitude, seekers of substance. You do not push people away. Rather, you orbit toward what your soul recognizes as real. As you evolve, you shed what no longer resonates, not out of cruelty, but from necessity. It is a spiritual molting, a psychic rebirth. And when this happens, shallow connections, those built upon performance, validation, or mutual distraction fall away like dried skin. You have not failed the connection. You have simply transcended its limits. Now, let us travel inward together. Close your eyes. Yes, inwardly. Look not at the world, but at the architecture of your own soul. There is a corridor there, lined with forgotten conversations, dimly lit memories, and echoes of laughter that once felt true. But many of these echoes come from rooms you no longer wish to enter. Why? Because your spirit now seeks resonance, not routine, symbol, not surface. In the depths of the subconscious, we meet the archetype of the hermit, not a lonely man on a hill, but the part of you that carries a lantern into the darkness. The hermit does not flee the world. He descends beneath it, and as he walks, he gathers symbols, meaning, truth. But what happens when he returns to the surface? He finds that most are still chasing shadows on the wall, confusing noise for knowledge, and so he remains misunderstood not because he is lost, but because he has seen what others have not dared to see. You, to carry the hermit within. The logical introvert is the hermit clothed in modern garments. You analyze, you observe, you question, and eventually you withdraw, not to escape others, but to protect what you have uncovered inside. You withdraw because connection without authenticity becomes noise. You withdraw because the conversations that once stimulated you now feel scripted, repetitive, hollow. You withdraw not out of arrogance, but because your soul, like a tuning fork, vibrates only when struck by depth. Understand this, your evolution threatens the comfort of others. When you stop playing roles, when you cease to perform and begin to reflect, you become a mirror to those who cannot face themselves. And so they label you distant, cold, or detached, but it is not distance that defines you, it is discernment. You are not aloof, you are awake. And let us speak now of the dream world, where the unconscious reveals what the conscious mind cannot admit. Many of you have dreamt of abandoned houses, of empty cities, of speaking only to find no sound emerges. These dreams are not about loneliness. They are symbols of psychic transition. The house you no longer live in is the persona you have outgrown. The city devoid of people is the external world, stripped of its masks. The silence in your voice reflects the futility of trying to speak to those who no longer hear the language of your soul. In the dream, if you walk alone, not because you are unloved, but because you are being led inward, led deeper. And the deeper you go, the fewer travelers you will meet, but those few will recognize you. You must come to terms with this universal paradox. To grow is to outgrow. To rise is to leave behind, not in hatred, not in bitterness, but in rhythm with the laws of psyche and spirit. As the acorn cracks and becomes an oak, it does not mourn the shell, it split. As the snake sheds its skin, it does not grieve its former form. And you, too, must understand that the loss of shallow connection is not a tragedy, it is a rite of passage. There are some among you who feel guilt for this unfolding. You wonder if you are selfish. You question if you should fix yourself and become more available, more fun, more normal. But I say to you, stop trying to drown in shallow water just so others don't feel alone. That is not compassion. That is self-betrayal. There is no virtue in shrinking yourself to be digestible. There is only decay. Let me tell you a story now, not from a book, but from the unconscious. A patient once came to me, a woman whose dreams were haunted by a staircase she could never climb. Each night she reached for the first step, but it crumbled under her foot. Again and again in waking life, she was surrounded by friends, but they shared only gossip, not growth. They laughed, but never listened. They gathered often, but their words slid over the surface like oil on glass. And she wondered why she felt alone, even in company. In her analysis, the staircase revealed itself as the path to individuation, the soul's journey upward. But each crumbling step symbolized her refusal to walk alone. She feared the solitude at the top. And so she remained at the base, surrounded by many, yet known by none. Only when she embraced the silence, only when she allowed the shallows to drain away, did the staircase hold beneath her. She climbed, and though she wept at what she left behind, she never looked back, because at the top she met herself. This is your journey too. Logical introverts, deep feelers who cloak their sensitivity in intellect are not broken. They are encoded with ancient memory. Your discernment is not detachment, it is clarity. Your silence is not avoidance, it is sacred space. Your solitude is not exile, it is return. And so I ask you, what shallow connection are you still clinging to out of guilt? What repetitive conversation do you entertain just to maintain the illusion of harmony? What version of yourself have you kept alive to please those who fear your transformation? Burn it. release it, mourn it, yes, but then move forward, because the self that you are becoming has no need for masks. The world does not teach you this. The world rewards performance. The world admires charisma, not character. But your soul is not of this world. It is a fragment of the eternal, and the eternal has no interest in popularity. The eternal values alignment and alignement de mon sacrifice. You may wonder then how one is to live in a world where deep connection is so rare, where most communication is camouflage, and where your withdrawal is misread as judgment. The answer does not lie in re-entering the shallows to appease those who fear your depth. It lies in descending further into yourself until the solitude becomes a sanctuary rather than a sentence. The world has taught you to be likable before being authentic. You were trained, even as a child, to exchange pieces of your essence for acceptance. The smiling mask was rewarded, the silent depth dismissed, and so your true self was buried. Not because you were hiding, but because the world was blind. You did not want to be unknown, but you were punished for being known too deeply. And so began the exile of the logical introvert, the sacred exile of the true self. But exile, my dear listener, is a crucible. It is not a punishment. It is an initiation. We must now speak of the shadow, for he walks beside you in this loneliness. He is the unspoken rage of being unseen. He is the disappointment of being called too much or too cold by those who never sought to understand you. The shadow whispers in your solitude, not to shame you, but to confront you. He is not your enemy. He is your unmet self. The one who remembers the pain of being dismissed for your depth, the one who still clenches his fists in the darkness of your unconscious, waiting to be integrated. Do not fear him. Listen. When you integrate the shadow, you no longer seek shallow approval. You no longer ache when the connection fades, because you recognize the expiration of masks as sacred. You no longer mourn the loss of those who left when you grew, because you see their departure not as betrayal, but as proof that the soul's ascent cannot carry all passengers. To integrate the shadow is to stop apologizing for your solitude. It is to stand at the edge of the known and whisper, I would rather be misunderstood than divided from my truth. And the truth is, these most relationships are not between two souls, but between two masks, persona meeting persona, both desperate to be seen, yet terrified of being known. When you remove your mask, when you stop performing, pleasing, pretending you do not drive people away, you simply reveal who was never really there. Those who remain are rare, treasure them, and yet you may find there are long seasons when no one remains. These are the deserts of the soul, necessary, though brutal. In these seasons, you are tempted to return to old roles, old versions of yourself, just to feel held again. But do not mistake familiarity for love. Shallow connection is not connection, it is choreography. It mimics intimacy, but it lacks resonance. True connection comes from the self. the archetype of totality. The wholeness that transcends persona and shadow alike. The self does not speak often, but when it does, it comes as a thunderclap in the soul. You will recognize its voice in the moments when you no longer feel fragmented. When your solitude feels like presence rather than absence, when your silence becomes a form of prayer. To reach the self, however, the journey demands that you suffer the death of all that is inauthentic, and so people will leave. You will outgrow your friends. You will no longer relate to your family in the same way. The laughter that once bound you will ring hollow. The conversations you once relished will feel exhausting. You will wonder if something is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong. In fact, something is finally right. You are awakening. Do you understand the cost of that? Most do not choose this path. It is not glamorous. It is not rewarded. It is not even visible, but it is the only path that leads to the soul. And yes, there is grief, deep oceanic grief, not for the people themselves, but for the version of you that believed in those connections, for the past self who still hoped the surface would one day become deep. You must mourn that self, hold a funeral. If you must, light a candle for the one who tried to belong by becoming smaller, and then release them. The introvert solitude is not a void, it is a temple. And in that temple, if you stay long enough, you will meet not just your shadow or yourself, but the archetypes of your destiny. The seer, the prophet, the sage, these are not fantasies. They are energies encoded within your psyche, waiting to be embodied, but they cannot emerge in noise. They require stillness. The shallow must be drained for the sacred to surface. There is a moment in every mystic's path when they realize the price of truth is popularity. You cannot be both awake and widely adored. The masses do not follow the quiet one. The depth seeker is rarely crowned, but the goal was never the crown. The goal was wholeness, and that is what you are becoming. I ask you now to remember a time when you were deeply seen by another, not for your words, not for your mask, but for your essence. Perhaps it was brief, a glance, a silence, a moment in a dream. That is the frequency you now seek. Not more friends, not more applause, but more of that, the sacred recognition of soul meeting soul. You are not antisocial. You are allergic to performance. You are not withdrawn. You are tuned to another frequency, one that speaks in symbols, not status, one that values presence over presentation. And I say this with great tenderness. Do not try to fix what was never broken. Do not contort yourself to revive expired connections. Do not dim your light to comfort those afraid of their own. You are not cold. You are a discerning. You are not distant. You are devoted to truth, to depth, to resonance. You do not push people away. You simply refuse to fake your belonging. And that, dear soul, is an act of sacred rebellion. When the soul begins to individuate, truly individuate, it does not seek separation from others as much as it seeks union with the self. And in this seeking, a paradox emerges. The deeper the union with one's self, the rarer the resonance with the world. Because the self, the totality of the psyche, has no need to perform, no thirst for validation. It does not beg for company. It summons it. The logical introvert, misunderstood by so many, is not merely reserved. They are the carrier of this deeper call. Their logic is not cold calculation, but a form of spiritual filtration. They filter out the meaningless. They strip away the artificial. They see through the masks that others wear, and they do not play along. This is not arrogance. It is devotion to authenticity. And yet, it leaves them alone. This loneliness is not incidental, it is initiatory. There is a desert between the false self and the real one, and every true seeker must cross it. In this desert, companionship fades. Familiarity vanishes. You will not find many handshakes here, nor many voices. But if you stay long enough, you will begin to feel the subtle pulsing of something ancient under your feet. It is the truth of your being, rising through the silence. To walk this path is to endure the agony of deconstruction. What once held you approval, repetition, small talk, shared distractions begins to crumble. And the people who were held to you by those structures, they begin to vanish too, not because they were false, but because their role was complete. They belong to a version of you that no longer exists. Do not chase ghosts. Let them dissolve with grace. When you lose connection to what is shallow, you are not becoming less connected. You are making space for something sacred. But the sacred is slow. It does not shout. It does not flood in with fanfare. It arrives like dew on the soul, quiet, glimmering, unmistakable. You must be silent to receive it. And you must be empty to be filled. This is why the logical introvert seems distant. Not because they lack capacity for connection, but because they are preparing sacred ground. They are not interested in talking. They are waiting for meaning to speak. And when it does, they will be ready. Their solitude is not a cage. It is consecration. Now let me tell you what I have seen in the dreams of many quiet souls. There is a recurring image. The dreamer stands before a vast library, one that seems to breathe. The books are not just texts, they are alive. Each one contains the story of a former self, a past connexion, an old identity. The dreamer wants to read, to remember, to retrieve, but the books disintegrate as they are touched. Pages vanish into mist, and the librarian says, what you seek cannot be carried where you are going. This dream is universal. It is the unconscious preparing you for forward motion. You are being told that memory cannot anchor you here. The people you loved may not come with you. The ideas you once lived by must be surrendered. Even your name, your voice, your posture towards the world, these two will burn away. This is the cost of becoming, and yet what is gained cannot be named in ordinary language. It is not more relationships, it is resonance, not more talk. but telepathy of the soul. You will find those who speak not to your ears, but to your essence. They will be few, but they will feel like home. You are not growing distant. You are drawing nearer to your own center, and that center cannot tolerate the brittle, the shallow, the scripted. It only drinks from the eternal. It only feeds on what is real. And so the world will misunderstand you. Let it. You were not born to be understood by the many. You were born to remember what the many forgot. And what is that? That the soul does not thrive in a crowd. It flourishes in truth. It expands in silence. It communes through symbol and dream and myth. It longs for the eternal and rejects the superficial as a form of self-defense. The logical introvert has not abandoned others. They have been reclaimed by their own soul. And this reclamation demands solitude. Let me now show you a symbol. The phoenix. We often speak of the phoenix rising, but we forget the part where it must first burn alone. No crowd watches the phoenix die. No friends cheer it through its immolation. There is only fire and silence. And it is in that sacred fire that the next version of the self is born. You too must burn through your need to be understood. Burn through your impulse to explain your distance. Burn through your guilt for outgrowing what once fit. Because on the other side of this fire, you will not be lonely. You will be light. But until then, yes, there will be tears. They will not always be seen, but they will carve new depths into your being. And in those depths, something will begin to sing. It will not be loud, but it will be yours. A voice that only you can hear. A truth only you can carry. This is the soul's song. And one day, someone will hear your silence and they will recognize it as their native tongue. They will not ask you to speak. They will not fill the silence. They will sit beside you in sacred stillness. And in that stillness, you will know. You have not outgrown connection. You have simply outlived the counterfeit. Your real people, your kindred souls, do not exist on the surface. They are found in the depths, and you must go alone to meet them. The soul's journey toward wholeness is not a straight road, but a spiral descent, circling ever inward, until what was once external becomes internalized. And what once felt like loneliness becomes a sanctuary of integration. If you have felt yourself withdrawing, not as avoidance, but as necessity, you are not collapsing into isolation. You are being refined by fire. You are undergoing the sacred work the alchemists once called the nigredo, the blackening, the breaking down of false matter, the decomposition of the impure. In alchemy, this stage precedes transformation. It is essential, and yet it terrifies the ego. Why? Because the ego believes it is the self. The ego cannot imagine a world beyond roles, performances, or identities. When you stop playing the roles, when you let friendships dissolve, instead of force their continuation, when you stop proving your worth by fitting into a system that never understood your depth, you are letting the ego die. That is no small death. that is an inner crucifixion. The logical introvert is often pushed into this death unconsciously, not by choice, but by resonance. They cannot remain in shallow waters without suffocating. They sense falsity like smoke in the lungs, and so they retreat not out of fear, but out of fidelity to what is real. But what comes after Nigrido, what comes after the soul, sheds what no longer nourishes it. The mystics called it albedo, the whitening, the emergence of clarity after confusion, the first flicker of light after deep darkness. And in this light, something profound becomes clear. You were never meant to carry everyone forward with you. Your journey is not communal. It is archetypal. It is patterned not after social norms, but after the sacred myths of awakening. You are not a failed extrovert. You are a wandering sage. And yes, there is a cost to this vision, because you begin to see the myths others live by, the myths of productivity, the myth of popularity, the myth of perpetual harmony, and you cannot unsee them. You begin to feel the weight of collective delusion pressing against your temples. You walk among the people, but your vision is no longer their vision. This is the beginning of the separation of the opposites. Another core stage in alchemy, the splitting of spirit from matter, truth from illusion, eternal from temporal. It is a psychic surgery. It requires solitude. It requires saying no. It requires not explaining yourself to those who were never listening. You see, shallow connections are not merely unfulfilling, they are distracting. They keep the psyche addicted to surface patterns. They pull the attention outward, fracturing it, fragmenting it, dulling the soul's capacity for vision. When you cut ties with these distractions, you are not becoming cold. You are recovering your inner focus. You are clearing the psychic field for deeper communion. This is when the archetype of the sage awakens fully. The sage is not wise because he knows many things. He is wise because he knows what not to engage. He knows what to release. He knows when silence is truth and when words are betrayal. The sage does not chase connection. He embodies it. His presence becomes a tuning fork for others. Some will be drawn in, many will flee. Let me share a vision that came to a man during his individuation process, a dream he could not understand until he surrendered his resistance. In the dream, he stood at the edge of a glass bridge, suspended high above a misty abyss. On the other side stood a figure he loved deeply, a friend of many years. He began to walk the bridge toward them, but each step made the figure fainter, more translucent. He called out, but the figure only smiled and waved. At the center of the bridge, he stopped, and the figure vanished completely. He wept upon waking, unsure whether he had lost something or gained something. In analysis, we uncovered the truth. The figure was not the friend, it was a symbol of the familiar self. The version of him that still clung to the past, to shallow belonging. And the bridge was the threshold. He could not carry both his soul and that shadow of himself forward. One would vanish. The dream was not about loss. It was about choice. And so it is with you. You stand at that bridge you cannot cross while holding every outdated connection, every expired version of yourself, and that is what terrifies most people. The true path demands sacrifice. It does not promise company. It promises clarity. In time, as the albedo deepens, as the false layers fall away, another stage arrives, the rubedo, the reddening. This is the return of vitality, of soul fire. You begin to feel alive in your silence. Your solitude becomes generative. You no longer shrink in rooms of noise, you simply observe. You no longer ache for attention, you create from presence. You no longer mourn what left you. Honor it as what cleared the way. And in this rubedo stage, something miraculous happens. A knock, soft at first, barely perceptible. Then another, not people demanding your return to their world, but souls who have walked their own deserts. Not those who want your performance, but those who seek your presence. Not those who drain you, but those who ignite you. This is the reunion after individuation. This is what I call soulkin. They may not speak often. They may live across oceans, but when you meet them, it is as if the dream you've been protecting finally finds its echo. There is no need to explain, no need to shrink, no need to fill the air with noise. They meet you at frequency, not form. But you must first become frequency. You must first embody the resonance you seek. And this can only happen through the fire of solitude. You see now, don't you, that you never pushed anyone away. You simply shed what could not endure your truth. You did not abandon connection. You just refused to betray your soul, to maintain it. You outgrew the script. You burned the costume. You walked off the stage and found the stars. And now, your life becomes a constellation. You connect not by proximity, but by light. You attract not by effort, but by essence. You are no longer a participant in the shallow play. You are the still flame others gather around when they, too, tire of pretending. And that, my friend, is not isolation. That is initiation fulfilled. So now, here, you are no longer at the beginning. Yet, not quite at the end. The self you once were has been burned in the crucible. The voices that once surrounded you now echo only faintly in memory. You do not reject them. You bless them, but you walk on because your soul has become too vast to be housed in small talk, too luminous to be hidden in performative pleasantries, too honest to kneel at the altar of superficial belonging. This is not a death, it is a return. You have not become someone else, you have become yourself, not the self that was sculpted to fit, but the self that was buried beneath masks of adaptation. And now, as that buried self rises, something within you begins to shine not for others, but through you. You begin to feel, at last, not the craving for connection, but the communion of resonance. You understand now that what you had to release was not just people, but the version of you that needed those people to feel whole. The one who feared silence, the one who begged to be included, the one who mistook distraction for love. And now the silence is not frightening. It is symphonic. The space is not empty. It is sacred. The solitude is not lonely. It is holy ground. You are no longer in exile. You are in the temple. And in this temple, you begin to dream again, not dreams of escape, but of emergence. You see visions not of a crowded room applauding you, but of a single soul across the fire who meets your gaze with quiet knowing. This is what you came here for. Not popularity, but presence, not attachment, but alignment, not performance, but truth. I want you to know this. Your depth is not a defect. It is a beacon, a signal to others who have lost themselves in the noise. You do not need to shout. You do not need to chase. You need only to be, and in your being, those who are ready will find you. But only if you stop dimming your fire, only if you stop pretending the shallow doesn't suffocate you. Only if you stop apologizing for evolving. You were never meant to stay in the circle you were born into. You were meant to spiral upward and outward and inward again. You were meant to become a lighthouse for others who are still wandering through fogs of false connection. But you cannot be that if you keep shrinking to fit in. It is time to accept that some connections are seasonal, some conversations were never meant to last, and some people only knew the version of you that existed before your awakening. They are not wrong for loving that version, but you are not wrong for outgrowing it. Growth is not betrayal. It is the fulfillment of truth. And what is truth, if not the soul finally remembering what it came here to be? When you feel the ache of detachment, remember you are not becoming less loving. You are becoming more aligned. You are not becoming distant. You are becoming precise. You are not becoming selfish. You are becoming sovereign. And that sovereignty will radiate. It will draw to you those whose souls were sculpted by silence like yours, those who speak the language of depth, those who do not need your explanation to understand your stillness, those who have also walked away from the stage to find the stars. They are not many, but they are enough. They are the few who do not fear your fullness, who do not shrink from your shadows, who do not need your smile to feel safe. With them, your silence will feel like communion. Your truth will not be too much, and your presence will not be performance. And until they arrive, if they haven't already, you are not alone. You are with yourself. And that is the first reunion, the most sacred one, the one from which all others are born. The soul does not push people away. It expands, and in that expansion, it will shake loose what cannot stretch with it. That is not rejection. That is rhythm. That is the pulse of your becoming. That is your rebirth. So go now, not back to the crowd, but deeper into your solitude, where your truest voice waits not to be heard. but to be trusted. Let the world misname you. Let it say you are distant. Let it call you quiet, cold, strange. Do not correct it. Do not contort to comfort it. You are not here to be understood. You are here to remember. And those who are meant for you will find you not by your noise, but by your note, the resonance of your essence. One day, when someone finally sits beside you and says nothing, yet you feel everything that will be your proof. You were never pushing anyone away. You were only preparing for this. And so I bless you in the silence. I bless your solitude. I bless your discernment. I bless the friendships that fell apart and the new ones that are now forming, not out of need, but out of frequency. I bless the version of you who tried to belong and the version of you who stopped apologizing for no longer fitting in. And most of all, I bless the depths in you, the part that refused to die, even when you were starving for connection. The part that whispered, wait, go deeper. There is someone coming who speaks your language. You are not alone. You are becoming, and in that becoming, you are not distant, you are divine.